purpose of today is to launch this report, Unlocking Our Wealth, which is the report of the Cooperative Councils Innovation Network Policy Commission on community resilience, jobs and growth.
Local councils are uniquely placed to work with local people and in local employers. And we're able to respond to the geographic, to the social and the cultural challenges, and that we are able to help people into work or training in a way that the DWP simply cannot do. We know really that for each local authority that there still remains a group of individuals who are missing out on the opportunities of employment. And that we also know that the currently nationally driven programmes do not recognise their needs and are completely ill-suited to coping with them. We also know that there's a real skills mismatch between what young people are leaving formal education with and the demands of local businesses and the demands of the local market. And I can illustrate that in my own borough, where we have a huge regeneration programme going on in the north of the borough in Vauxhall, but where we actually know that the skill level, so i.e. the amount of skills training that's going on to make people or to enable people to become skilled enough to take advantage of those job opportunities, sits somewhere just less than 40%. And of course, as of this month, young people are nearly 3 times more likely to be unemployed than the rest of the population, and that's the largest gap in 20 years. We're often tempted, I think, particularly in big policy documents, to talk a lot about percentages and a lot about statistics. And I think the work programme is very much around form filling and ticking boxes. But what we're really talking about is people and treating each person as an individual. And that was one of the principles, it seemed, to actually drawing people who were furthest away from the employment place into a job. I want to illustrate that with one example, which is a fantastic little programme called the Tree Shepherd. Now, the Tree Shepherd are a social enterprise who, in their own words, work with the natural entrepreneurial skills of local people, support them to transform where they live from places of neglect to places of opportunity. And we have badged that in Lambeth Council as a social entrepreneur in residence. And I love that phrase because what it is saying is that we have taken that approach to the heart of our council and that we think it's a fundamental way to start treating people as individuals. And surprise, surprise, what you find from that is that only been up and running for a year, 147 Lambeth residents have joined their enterprise startup programme. More than half have now started training, and the independently estimated social value of that project is now approaching £150,000. And I would suggest that it's well on its way to doing that. So the cases that we were showing was that local government was delivering, but critically, and this is very important as part of the devolution debate, local government delivering when it's working in partnership with local businesses, local community and local people. Now, it would be churlish to suggest, I think particularly in this week, that the government is completely not listening, or the national political parties are completely not listening to the devolution debate. We hear more exciting news yesterday from Manchester. You know, there is a growing awareness of the importance of local authorities. So there are really good examples of, I think, government listening and of the political parties listening. But our challenge, I think, has to be that we really need to be making the case even more strongly, particularly at this moment. And so to get to the recommendations in the report, which are around a series of 3 deals, the first of which is advocating a new deal with government based on local freedom to innovate. We, as local councils, will provide and indeed are providing local leadership. We are capable and are indeed providing effective services. We are accountable to local people and we are able to win the trust of citizens. And in return, what we're asking for is the government to trust us, to share information, a lot more transparency around where some of those grants are going, so we can hold, in certain cases, businesses to account. But critically, to let us in to help design the systems that we know will work for our local communities and to give us the resources to do the job. So there's a very simple call for a devolution of much more control around skills funding and for local authorities to have much more responsibility and funding to get on, particularly to provide for people with complex long-term needs and to help them get into work. And to be honest, if we can't make that case at the moment, when politically the appetite is for more devolution, when local government is clearly the branch of government that is delivering, where we, I think, have established, and this report further enforces, the importance of the kind of values you need to make these things work. At a time of austerity, where every pound needs to be spent wisely, we might as well all give up, and I'm not prepared to do that. The second deal that we articulate in the report is a deal with business. We want that to be based on genuine partnership. As councils, we will take the lead in getting businesses involved in the leadership of the place. We will certainly develop local employment commitments to fair pay and training, and we will try and do all that we can to broker that rather elusive relationship between schools and employees. And the final deal that we articulate, which is a very personal one and gets us back to the first point, which is really around this is about people, this is about individuals, this is about individual opportunity, has to be around a new deal with citizens, sitting with somebody and working with them and understanding their needs and actually therefore empowering them and expecting in return individuals to feel empowered and responsible.
So I come at this debate perhaps what you might call poacher turned gamekeeper, possibly even pheasant. Now, having been both a local councillor, a community activist, a cooperator, and now a member of Parliament, and I'm extremely excited by what the co-op councils are doing every time I see the work they're doing, and it gives me great hope. But I want to talk today, in my kind of response to what Lib is saying, something more philosophical to it, which is the heart of the matter, is that why does any of this matter? Because my concern is to make sure that we understand why the purpose of corporatism feeds the outcomes, and it's not simply about a process. The ethos for me is best summed up by an American Methodist called William Arthur Ward, who said, "The more generous we are, the more joyous we become. The more cooperative we are, the more valuable we become. The more enthusiastic we are, the more productive we become. The more serving we are, the more prosperous we become." And for me, at the heart of cooperative politics and policy making is a belief that, contrary, frankly, to both people in local and national government sometimes, people who want to participate is not a problem that you have to manage, but a resource that you can unlock. We know some of the great challenges that our world will face, whether it's around social mobility, enduring poverty, climate change, terrorism, the global economy. Our existing institutions and ways of working would struggle with just one of those challenges. But I passionately believe, and the reason why I got into politics, is that if we can unlock the potential of the public, we can deal with all of those issues and more, and we can deal with them in a way that actually means that everybody will benefit. The world of work and the things that you're talking about today is a great example of that. Because if we think about the changes that have just happened over the last couple of years alone, particularly the massive rise in people going into self-employment, the numbers of jobs that will be replaced by automation, the enduring challenges around productivity in the UK, the fact that, frankly, we are living through the beginnings of a Marxist revolution. The power to produce is increasingly in the hands of the workers. That offers up real opportunities, but also real challenges that we face within our society. And I believe that the best way that we address them is collaboratively. But that means that we need to have a way that unlocks the insight and the input of the people themselves in how we perceive those problems. And one of the challenges has always been, particularly when it's come to perhaps addressing unemployment and long-term unemployment, is it's been very supply-led. So I thought what was very powerful about the report was the discussion about where you found actually young people being trained in skills that are irrelevant, frankly, for jobs that don't exist anymore, where you've got employers crying out for another type of set of jobs, another set of skills that aren't being addressed. And fundamentally, it's about creating that empowering culture. Now, at the heart of that is the elephant in the room about power. And what does that mean for people like myself, the poachers, the gamekeepers, the pheasants in the picture? Because I think that means we have to change our understanding of what that role is. And I think that's what's so admirable about the Cooperative Council movement, is it's changing people's understanding of moving from simply being a decision maker or a manager even of a public service to actually being an advocate for change and an advocate for the experience and contribution that the people in the communities that you work with can make. And I think there's something very important about corporatism for me that I want to finish on, which is it requires us to have faith in each other. It requires us to have faith that no matter how complicated and difficult the problem is, we can find new ways of working, we can find new ways of collaborating. It's rooted in an idea that that is a job for all of us to do, not government alone, not citizen alone, but it's a collective endeavour. I'm very excited by what the cooperative movement is doing, both in local and in national government. I hope certainly to see co-op values being taken into the new government on May the 8th, and certainly it's something I hope to be part of as well, whether I be pheasant, gamekeeper or even poacher. Thank you.
I live in Smethwick, which is a borough in Sandwell. It can be known to not be very nice for many different reasons. Mostly there's not really many jobs there, and if there are, they aren't very well advertised to maybe young people. I did 4 rather than 5 years at school. I was a fast track student, so I missed out year 9. And then I did 2 years of sixth form because of that. And that meant when leaving college or my sixth form, I was only 17 years old, so I wasn't able to get the funding for myself to go to university. If I did want to go, I'd have to pay the £8,500 for my first year. I spoke to colleges, universities, connections, and because we were the first year to have done this, they didn't know what to say, they didn't know what to do. But after doing my A-levels, when leaving, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to stay there because I'd already finished. I didn't want to leave school because I wouldn't have been able to, again, to get job seekers, but I wouldn't have wanted to be on that anyway. I found out about apprenticeships through my manager. I met her at a youth group that I used to volunteer at. She come to speak to us about what we wanted to do, and I told her my situation, and she showed me what apprenticeships were. Before I got my apprenticeship, I volunteered at an event with them in the summer where they told me about the apprenticeship within the team, and I applied for it, and luckily I got it. But being at the council has helped me a lot, because really the different opportunities that I would have had when I was at college maybe wouldn't have got me to where I am now with the council. For one, I wouldn't be speaking in front of all of you, I wouldn't have the confidence, I wouldn't have done speeches before, I wouldn't know about the world of work. Coming from school, you don't know what an employer is looking for. They don't tell you that you need to be confident. They don't tell you what a work environment's like. It's different at every place. You don't meet employers for them to tell you what they are looking for. All they tell you is you need this grade to get this job. And maybe that's not what you want to do, really. I've got involved with a project called Talent Match. This is the talent match in the Black Country. So young people pick their own programme of how they want to get from what stage they're at now into employment. So firstly, when I got involved with this, I interviewed the project development manager and the young person's engagement advisor, which was new to me. I'd never been on that side of an interview before, so that was a good experience. The project is basically the young person signs up and says, I need help, I can't get a job. It goes for the young people that are hidden, that are on job seekers, that maybe have barriers such as being homeless, having a young child, not being confident, and it helps them get employment. So they meet with their mentor, so to say. They get to pick who it is, the person that best relates to them. They have mentors all from different backgrounds of life so that they can relate more to the young person, and the young person picks what programs they feel that they would like to go on that would benefit them to gaining employment. From then, young people can come to us and say, I am looking for work, can you help? And with them paying part of the wages for the young people to get into work, employers are more likely to come and say, I'd like to take one on for a year, and it might open the employer's eyes as well to what young people are actually like and what young people need, because some employers may not think, oh, they've got a young child, I can't have them because of the hours, but maybe they can, they just need to develop a bit more. But I just think that we need to start getting people to work together, like companies, councils, young people, to see what they all need to cater for everyone's needs. Getting the young people to voice their opinions, to meet companies, to talk to people about what companies actually want is the way forward, rather than just saying, no, we can't employ you, and not getting any feedback from it.
So in today's report, I think one of the interesting areas that sort of comes out of it, and key, of course, for me, is the diagnosis that some people in our communities are missing out on the opportunities of employment. Looking at the national picture, it's particularly clear that whilst we're seeing strong employment growth, this isn't necessarily reflected in an even way across the country, and in some areas there have even been some losses in private jobs. So building on this, one of the things that seems to be holding back growth in wages in our economy is a lack of productivity, worsened, I think, by both skills shortages and skills mismatches. So by that I mean that there are some employers who are struggling to find people with the right skills for the right job, whilst ironically there are some with highly skilled backgrounds who can't always find a job in the location that they want to find it in their local economy. And that challenge may, in my view, be holding back the growth opportunities of the economy on a national scale. So what does it mean for us? Well, both of those, as those who are engaged in issues in our communities and with a commitment to our cooperative values and employee ownership, and also businesses like John Lewis and how they can do their bit, and working with the cooperative councils to try and work out what might be the solution. I'd just like to give you maybe 3 thoughts. So the first is that thinking local can be really good for business. John Lewis has branches up and down the country, so from Aberdeen to Exeter, and we've even got branches now in Terminal 2, Heathrow Airport and St Pancras Station. And it's become clear as we've expanded that some of the things that we do much better are delivered much better locally, rather than through any sort of centralised systems. So if I give you an example of this, in 2011, John Lewis opened a major new branch at Stratford City. It was 9 months ahead of the Olympic Games and was a real sense of excitement for us as a business, and I know for the community. But it was clearly important that our new branch reflected the community in which we wish to trade. So we worked in partnership with Job Centre Plus to secure places at our assessment centres for people who were long-term unemployed. And I mean long-term. In some cases, some of those families had several generations who were unemployed. We recruited 150 partners from this group, and now 80% of that branch and partners that work in that branch come from the local postcode area. Clearly this requires a really concerted and planned effort, but it's a different approach to simply listing jobs on a website, but we think it's worthwhile. My second point is that business can make a contribution to social fabric. One of the things that's perhaps a little unusual about John Lewis is that we have a written constitution, and our elected body called the Partnership Council, which represents the whole of our partners, 90,000 in total across the country, are the only people who can vote to approve a change to that constitution. But it was drafted about 100 years ago, and it's changed very little. And one of the key principles in the Constitution is that the partnership will contribute to the well-being of communities where it operates, and we're still really committed to that today. But councils also have a role as key facilitators, linking businesses and parts of the community that need extra support to get people into employment, or with schools and further education colleges so that young people have really clear ideas of the jobs that are available in their local communities, and also the qualifications that they will need in order to compete effectively. My third and final point is about the economic contribution. So one of the main benefits of the John Lewis employee ownership model is our ability to take a long-term view. So we don't have any option to sell shares or to try and kowtow to any shareholders or the stock market. And so when you're going into owning a business for today, tomorrow and the long term, and you know that that ownership is secure in trust, as the John Lewis Partnership is, you really can commit to supporting communities. Clearly the world of work, though, is changing dramatically. And over the next 20 years or so, many of the businesses that councils are building links with will be seeing all sorts of changes, but some will still be trading. And there's much that can be done, I believe, to make sure that we're building the skills that we need for those future years going out. And critical, of course, for councils to be on the front foot and make sure that they're working with businesses really to identify where these shifts in the labour market might be so that we can build the right skills and those capabilities for the future. And we're doing lots of work to spread the word on employee ownership because, to give you just a few examples, around 80% of employee owners experience a sense of achievement, for example, from their job and are happy to recommend their organisation as a great place to work. The Employee Ownership Association publishes lots of information, but the latest is the economic case for employee ownership, which talks to the fact that the number of employee-owned businesses is growing by about 10% at the moment. The gross profit in the last year of employee-owned businesses in the top 50 grew by over 25%. But the good news is that there's a role for each of us in this room for flying the flag for employee ownership and cooperatives. And the Employee Ownership Association is a fantastic resource for any business that wants more information about how they might move to employee ownership. And in the 4 years I've been chairman, we've seen our membership numbers grow from 90 to over 250, and that's growing rapidly. So in short, I think there's much work that cooperative councils can do to shape the direction of local economies and the local labour markets. None of these solutions are straightforward, though, and it does require a really concerted effort. But I think businesses like us and like the cooperative councils can make a really big difference.